and then IMPD and multiple law enforcement agencies stayed on the ground throughout the service. Now, in the midst of the crowd were residents from the community who showed up today to pay their respects to Deputy Chief Waters.
It was hard on everybody. It was really hard. You could look at the faces. It is hard on me because he meant a lot to me. His family, his father meant a lot to me. And it is bearing down on communities.
If you talk to the mourners out here, they will tell you one thing consistently, that Deputy Chief Waters shared his big smile with anyone who came in his presence. Now, coming up, all new at 6 o'clock, you'll hear more from Ms. Harwell, and she'll share what other impact that Chief Deputy Waters has made, not only in her life, but in others as well. I'll have that for you all new at 6 o'clock. For now, reporting live at Crown Hill Cemetery, Julian Grace, 24-hour News 8.
Julian, thank you. The procession took Deputy Chief Waters past IMPD's East District. Waters served as commander there from 2011 to 2014, and that's where we find 24-hour News 8's Elizabeth Choi tonight. Elizabeth, good evening to you.
Good evening. Yeah, things are pretty quiet right now, but I can assure you that just hours ago, that was not the case at all. In fact, there were IMPD officers lining, see the brick area or the concrete area behind me, the wall, officers lining that area. We had hundreds of people passing through on this street. About 24 IMPD officers from the East District here behind me lined the street, most flashing their red and blue lights, and some of them, a few of them, were even on horses. Then dozens of police motorcycles crowded the street. They were making the way for the procession to begin. Hundreds drove through, from police to fire, city leaders, state leaders, and community members, and many more lined the streets here, all saddened by the sudden death of Deputy Chief Waters. A large frame picture of Waters was unveiled right before a hearse carrying his body eventually made its way through the crowd as his colleagues saluted him one last final time. A limousine carrying loved ones trailed right behind Waters. People in the community call it a fitting tribute to a man who meant so much to this community.
The reason why I come out for Jim Waters, because he was special to the East Side.
And it's just such a huge loss for the city. Losing somebody of that caliber of law enforcement officer is just a huge loss.
Now, although there were hundreds of people who took part in this procession, it passed by in a relatively short amount of time, about 30 minutes. Coming up at 6 o'clock, we're going to hear more from people, more from those mourners, more from those community members on why it was so important for them to be out here today. But for now, live from the East District, Elizabeth Choi, 24-hour News 8.
All right, Elizabeth, thanks for that perspective. You know, Deputy Chief James Waters was so much more than a police officer, a sentiment repeated at his funeral today inside Bankers Life Fieldhouse. Our own Brenna Donnelly attended the funeral, joins us live now, showing us what those who knew him best had to say about this man. Good evening, Brenna.
Good evening, Brooke. As expected, the funeral today was very touching, filled with musical numbers, memories, and tributes to who Jim Waters was off duty.
I never heard one complaint come out of that man's mouth. Never.
High praise from his church pastor, Indianapolis Mayor Joe Hogsett, IMPD Chief Brian Roach, and Lieutenant Michael Bruin. But Deputy Chief Jim Waters wasn't always described in phrases you'd expect.
Jim was the best manipulator. The absolute best manipulator.
Chief Roach went on to describe how Waters would lean back, move his hands, and suggest improvements and manipulate others to better themselves. He did say Waters also used this special trait for fun.
Jim talked Tim into buying a horse. Tim didn't really know why he was buying a horse, but Tim bought a horse because Jim talked him into it. Strangely then, the story gets even better. Jim talked Tim into giving Jim the horse.
Deputy Chief Waters leaves behind his wife, 2 children, and a granddaughter. His family members did not speak, but others gave insight into his family life.
He loved you all. He loved his family. When family was mentioned, Jim lit up. He cared passionately about you guys.
Now, of course, those were just some of the stories, memories, and again, musical numbers that were shared at the funeral today. The speaker's insistent that as long as his legacy lives on, his work lives on as well. That work, of course, being described as both classical and innovative. My colleague Tim McNicholas has more on that today. Tim.
Yeah, good evening to you, Brenna. One lieutenant described Waters as a man who fought crime in his own way. He did whatever he had to do to make the difference within the community. And folks who work with him, they say that he understood not just police work, but he understood people. They say that's the trait that made him such a great leader, not just for IMPD, but for the entire city. For some, this is the final goodbye to Deputy Chief James Waters.
Jim was a gentle giant.
But the memories he left behind,
Just always a happy-go-lucky guy.
those will never go away. Former IMPD Chief Rick Height promoted Waters from East District Commander to Assistant Chief.
It's hard. White community, black community, Burmese community, Latino community, he was known. I mean, and the guy who took time for people and stopped, talked, grab a coffee. You know, he loved to do that. He loved to chat, loved to tell stories.
Today, it's his brothers and sisters in blue telling stories about him, like the time he diffused a street disturbance with one of his most valuable tools.
That smile, he flashed a smile. I mean, he knew the majority of the people on both sides of the issue. It was a Hatfield McCoy kind of situation where the people were at odds to each other, but he was able to get them to kind of like to part ways and listen to reason. He did that time and time again.
Or the times he knocked on doors, looking for feedback on the Northwest Side with City Council President Maggie Lewis.
He would knock on the door and just people would get excited to see him there. He had a smile that was just contagious.
Lieutenant Brian Churchill remembers what a local pastor said about Waters during a meeting with IMPD.
He pointed at Jim and he said, "This guy gets it." In my 24 years preaching from the pulpit in this city, he's the first cop that gets it. And he did. He understood what people needed, and he worked hard to get it for them.
And we also spoke with a man who grew up with Waters. They met at the age of 14. We'll hear what he had to say tonight at 6. Live downtown, I'm Tim McNicholas, 24-Hour News 8.
All right, Tim. Emotional.
Yeah, you can tell what an amazing guy he was, and gone too soon. But
Absolutely.
Lawrence Police Deputy Chief Gary Woodruff joins us now with more perspective on today's events. Gary, thanks for being with us.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
What stood out to you today about this service and about this life?
I think just such a fitting tribute to a wonderful public servant, a person that influenced just every corner of law enforcement in Marion County and beyond. He had some positive influence over every one of us, and that's one of my many takeaways for today.
You knew him for a number of years, right?
Right.
What is his legacy, in your opinion?
Served side by side as commander of East District, and I was during my time as deputy chief with Lawrence also. And I think the relationship building was probably the biggest thing, something that we've tried to emulate as well. And you build those relationships and that trust in the community, and you can get a lot done then. And Chief Waters got a lot done.
You know, when we heard someone say, he was one of the few officers who got it. He gets it. What do you think? Can you explain to us who are not in the inside of law enforcement, what does that mean?
I wish I could. We use the same terminology. Yeah, he gets it. And Chief Waters definitely got it. I think some of that is being able to talk to a wide variety of people and connect. There are some people that can communicate, that can talk. There are some people that can connect. And Chief Waters had that ability to be able to connect with that wide variety of people. And again, that's something many of us look to do in our careers as well.
To your point, where does that come from, that ability to connect with the folks out? Maybe, from different communities that he didn't grow up in. How can you connect, and how did he do it?
Yeah, I think the sincerity, he had this way about him, this smile, but that behind that smile, those eyes showed an intense sincerity. I think people sense that when they're interacting with somebody who truly cares. People can tell when they're just, maybe talking but not communicating, not connecting. And he absolutely had that ability to connect with that wide variety of people. I think that sincerity, that intensity and that sincerity really played through even behind that disarming smile.
I met him one time, and yeah, I can say I walked away and I just felt This is a genuine person.
Right.
You can just tell immediately. Going forward now for his family, obviously the FOP will play a big role in that support system. How is that for them now?
Well, there's an officer that is assigned to them throughout this whole process, and they'll remain there. At some point, reality is going to set in, and that's where the real peopling comes into play.
Yes.
But there's a proud legacy that is there also. I think they can take heart in that stories that were heard today and many others that will be shared moving forward will help them. They knew him better than anybody.
Yeah.
They would know what he would want them to do moving forward, and that's living their lives well.
Gary Woodruff, I know you're from a different police department, but you guys all serve the people of Indiana. Thank you very much for being here tonight.
Likewise, my pleasure.
Thanks, Gary.
So if you were unable to watch our coverage this afternoon of the service for Deputy Chief Waters, you can find it right now at wishtv.com. We posted several videos, and later this evening, we'll have today's entire service at Bankers Life Fieldhouse on our website as well, so you can watch it. We'll be right back.